And so what we do, the way we begin this process, after we do, well, I usually line this up before the focus on the 30 days to personal spiritual health. But we bring together our leadership to complete the profile. You only need 30 people. Last time, we ended up with more than that, just because sometimes it's kind of weird to tell someone we want you to come, but we don't want you to come, and so it doesn't matter if you have more than 30, but the science part of it, 30 is a good number. Now, I've done this around the world. I've done this in Mexico, the church that only had 12 people total in the church. And so the science for them might be a little off. The numbers are not perfect for them, but we went ahead and did it with 12 people, and that's okay. Because at least it gives you a starting point. It gives you something to begin to have this conversation. Whether their minimum factor was 100% accurate with only 12 taking it, I don't know. But it gives them a starting point. So you get your leadership together and you do this, you answer the questions. Now, I say that we score the question to create your profile. If you do it digitally, which is what I recommend, like you could get your people to come with their phones, their iPads, their computers, however they can connect online. If they can do it digitally, then I can get the report like instantly. Almost. Whenever we're done, it takes a little bit, but it's not long. And so usually what I do is like I would come and meet with your 30 people. Again, a little food doesn't hurt, right? So you get together, maybe have a little meal together, and I introduce the whole process to them again. And I talk a little more detail about what's going to happen and why their role is so important. I want them to understand this is so big, what you guys are about to do, and to thank them for the investment of their time. And then usually the next morning, I get together with the pastor. If my brother is with me, and I prefer that, he and I sit down with the pastor and we talk about what just happened. We talk about the profile. What does it mean? Sometimes there's some personal comments we want to have with just the pastor. They might need, for one thing, you need to be affirmed and loved on and helped. There are a few questions on there, especially in the inspiring worship service part, that is sort of focused on the pastor. Honestly, if you're preaching boring sermons, there's no way to get around that. If the church says your sermons need some help, But I think we just have to be grown-ups here, honestly, and say, you know what, if the doctor says my cholesterol is bad, I need to change my diet. I don't need to get mad at the doctor, or I don't need to put my head in the sand and not go get the test done. I just need to take the medicine and do something about it, change my lifestyle. If we're preaching boring sermons, we don't want to be the last to know that. And so we want to fix that problem and adjust it. We're not all Charles Spurgeon. I'm not the greatest preacher in the world, but I do know that I can improve my preaching, and so can you. We can learn. There's resources out there. There's tools that will teach us how to preach better. We just need to make that a priority. I'm 63. I'm still working on it. Every year I want to be better. And so anyway, so we score it. We print that out. And then the next thing, we review the results with your pastor. I just mentioned that. The pastor then creates a 5 to 6 person church health team. It's totally dependent on you as far as how many. And then we're going to maybe involve others in the church to help study and analyze the issues that created the minimum factor. At least your church health team will do that. You might want to involve some other people. You could take another little survey in your church. You could do all kinds of things to ask yourself, why is that the minimum factor? Why is that particular issue the problem? Okay, so effective structures is our minimum factor. Why? What's going on? And so I will lead the church health team in that first session to ask some questions to begin that journey. Because with your church health team, I'm willing to come back and train them, to release them, to do their work. So in that first section, we do a little exercise to discuss this minimum factor and try to figure out what's the problem. But you may want to dig in a little deeper. So you spend a little while doing some research, asking some hard questions, kind of looking at yourself honestly about what's the problem here, because you want to be able to address it. And then this team is going to develop some goals. And notice how I set this up. This is sort of a new thing for me. We've not always done it quite this way. The team developed goals to address the minimum factor. This is the thing we've not done. My friend in California, who is on a teaching team with me, he says he does this with every church he coaches, and it kind of makes sense. So I think I'm going to start doing it as well. And that is to say to the church health team, first of all, you want to create a church-wide initiative related to your minimum factor. So everybody in the church is involved. What is one thing your whole church could do to get healthier in relationship to your minimum factor? It's an interesting approach. But the reason he does this is because it involves the whole church and everybody is talking about that minimum factor. So that makes sense. So you got to figure out what could be a church-wide initiative. Honestly, we're looking at effective structures, and I'm like, what do we do? Church-wide initiative on effective structures. I don't know. I need to think about that. But then in addition to that, this is sort of where the rubber meets the road, in my opinion, other than the church-wide initiative, but this 3 to 5 additional goals. And that probably will relate to a lot of people in your church. Like one of our goals is we are developing a better training system to onboard people into ministry. And so this summer, we're going to be creating videos. So if you are a deacon, you're going to have like a 4-video process. You watch, a 20-minute video, a 30-minute video, you answer 5 questions, you watch another 20-minute video, answer some questions, and then you're going to have a mentor. There's going to be a year-long process, and here's a book that you read. So there's just a journey that you're going to go on if you're going to be a deacon. If you're going to be an usher, there might be 2 little videos you watch with some questions, and here's a little pamphlet that you read, and here's a little thing that you do. Here's a mentor that you have. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to do it, but we're creating a system or a process that you'll go through to be trained if you're going to serve in our church. And we're going to do that all across the board in every ministry that we can think of. We want a good, solid training system. So that's one of our goals. That's a huge undertaking. But that's one of the 3 to 5 goals. I think that will cover a lot of people in our church, but not everybody serves. So that it can't be called a church-wide initiative because not everybody will be impacted by doing the training. Hopefully they'll be impacted by receiving the benefit of it. But anyway, so you develop your goals related to this. Then the church health team and the pastor will share the plans and the strategies with the church. Encourage that. This is what we're going to do. Here's what our strategy is. I'm about to do that with our church leadership team in April. Here's what we're doing. Here's how it's going. And then while we may or may not share all the little nitty gritty, maybe there'll be 1 or 2 that I would say church-wide, want you to know this is what we're doing. Pray for us. We want to be a healthy church. We spend a year or so working on the plan. If you did a 12-month process, which isn't a bad way to do it, you would take the profile. Let's say you do that in July, August. And let's say your church health team works August, September, October. Let's say you launch your initiative October, November. And let's say you work really hard on it in June, July, and then you do it again in August. So you could do a 12-month process like that. We've gotten a little behind. Ours isn't going to be 12-month this time. We got focused on some other issues. And so we probably will do the profile again maybe in January. But it could be a 12-month. And it's not a bad thing to make it part of the rhythm of your church. Once a year, you do it, and you evaluate yourself once a year. So you're getting that scorecard. I mean, we go to the doctor once a year, or we should, right? But so anyway, spend a year working on it, and then you go through the evaluation process again. Everybody always wants to know, what is the cost? Okay, let me just throw it out to relieve our anxiety. The profile cost, I recommend the $369 level. There's 3 levels. I think the first one is $299. You just really get the basic profile. I don't think that's enough. The $369 I think is better. You get all the questions that go with it, and it helps you. It gives you the resource, I think, to begin. If you want the Cadillac version, I think it's $499. And you get a lot of stuff. I did the Cadillac version this last time with my church just because I wanted to be thoroughly acquainted with it. There is some great stuff in there. But it's kind of up to you if you want to go ahead and bite the bullet and do all of that. Most of the churches that I work with end up doing this middle level. And unfortunately, our prices just went up a little bit, or their prices. But anyway, $369 is the basic. As far as if you want me and my brother to help coach, and we're happy to do that, as we can work you in, I get a paycheck from my church. I get paid. And so you don't need to pay me. My brother gets paid. He's a worship pastor in South Georgia. You don't need to pay him. If you want to give an honorarium, it's totally up to you, but we're not offended and we don't expect it. And we just love helping churches. That's really our passion. We don't need your money. You can use it to do something else. Now, if there's travel expense, my brother does live in Cairo. He's a First Baptist Cairo, by the way. And so if he comes up, help him with some mileage, or something. If he needs a place to stay, he'll probably stay with me. So, you don't have to pay for a hotel. So we want to make it as cheap as possible. Now, my friends who are coaches and instantly they're like, Tim, you don't need to do that. I think we just want to help churches. And so invest in other things, do things to make this a great experience for your church. Spend some money on some promotional stuff. I don't know how you do it, but you'll figure all that out. So if there's any travel or cost expense, then the food thing, do it well, do it right, make it a memorable experience. So there might be some costs there as you feed your church. You could do a covered dish. My church, covered dishes don't work anymore. I don't know. We got a bunch of young people, David. I don't know. They don't want to bring food. We're too big too. We can't figure out how to fit everybody in, so I don't know. But figure that out. You might want to do the meal for the leaders taking the survey. That's not a bad thing. The cost of the book is $8. And I will deliver it myself or drop ship it to you or something. So that you don't have to pay the more expensive price. And I recommend when you budget for this process, I recommend get your people to pay for their book. That's not a bad thing. I think there's skin in the game. There's some kind of investment here, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I tell that to every church that we've ever worked with, and probably half of the churches buy it for their people. And so they're not listening to me, but I think it's not a bad thing to have people buy their own stuff. So what's next? Get your church leadership on board. However you need to do that. If you want me to come talk to them, I can do the best I can to do that. I have had events, and I don't mind doing this again, by the way. And by the way, there's 5 churches in Fairburn Association. Is it 5?
5, yes.
That's planning to do this in August. And so if you want to be part of that, there's nothing wrong with jumping on board.
Yeah, we're going to have a pastor meeting, a luncheon with you, Tim, on April 27th.
Yep.
It's a Monday lunch, just for pastors. And you have to let me know that you want to come also, and then we'll let you come to that meeting, and then we can talk a little more in depth and answer more questions, that kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
Get ready, but right, we're initially looking at August for doing the actual survey, and then what after August would be making some plans, looking at the results of it, things like that for 2027.
Imagine how helpful it would be to know that there's X number of churches all doing this at the same time. And so you guys are praying for each other, you're encouraging each other, you're talking about it. I mean, there's some synergy, I think, that would happen from multiple churches doing it at the same time. We tried to do this in our association. I ended up with 3 churches. What I did is we just invited them to Sunrise, and we said, come over here, we'll feed you lunch. And I shared it with the pastors. And I said, let's get back together again for dinner. So we fed them dinner, said, come back and come as your pastor, bring a couple of leaders from your church, shareholders, whatever you want to call them, people who really are movers and shakers, bring them along and let's talk about church health. And then y'all figure it out if you're going to do it, and then we'll launch it. So if you want to do something like that, I don't mind. If you want to get together, bring 2 leaders from your church, we could do something. But you'll need to do something to get your leadership on board. You don't want to drive this by yourself and try to, do it alone. So get them on board, put together a planning team to help launch 30 Days to Spiritual Health. However you do that, we're going to have a big dinner. We're going to do whatever, and we got to promote this thing well. We got to, however it is, however you do that with your other events, calendar the launch to the 30 Days to Spiritual Health. Clear stuff away from your calendar. Let this be what you do. Let this be the focus of that season. You know how it is. We're busy, and so you got to clear all that away so that this really receives all the attention that it needs. And I recommend during that time, maybe as a pastor, you could kind of look through the stuff here and just create 4 sermons that sort of fit into this. My brother and I are trying to create additional resource to go along with this, maybe some sermon outline suggestions, maybe do 4 videos. Well, that'd be great. Have a little video, 30-minute, 20-minute, something you could show in your Sunday school class, and then your class could discuss it. I think that would be a great resource. Maybe we can do that in the future. And then enlist at least 30 leaders to help develop the profile and schedule that leadership event when they're going to actually come and answer the questions. If we do that as an association, there's some of this we can all do together. Now, if it's a huge group, we might have a hard time finding a place where we can all fit. But some of it could be done together. If it's a really bunch of churches and we can't, like 30 people times 10 churches, that ends up being a lot of people, we might could do it. We might could do it in 2 meetings maybe or something. There is some benefit, I think, because your people know other people in other churches. And so I think it would be advantageous for them to all know we're all trying to be healthy churches. And that's not a bad thing. Then enlist a church health team of 4 to 5 people. and calendar the training event. Now, the training event we could do in a group, like you bring your 5 people and all the churches doing it together, all bring their 5 people. We could do a big training event together. It would have to be a big enough room so when we do this little exercise, each little group can do their thing. That wouldn't be a bad thing. But then it probably gets a little more personalized after that. Work with the church leaders to study your church in relationship to the church profile. So your church health team is guiding this thing. You're studying, you're researching, why is this our minimum factor? Whoops. And then you create initiatives and the goals that we talked about. Maybe the church-wide initiative, maybe the 4 or 5 goals. I'll tell you what I do with my staff. We look at our church profile and we say, what's your minimum factor? What are the minimum questions? Just among the pastors on our team, I say, guys, there's some stuff we could do like right now. We could like tie a tourniquet around this thing and stop the bleeding. We could fix this right now if we do these 3 things. Let's do them. We don't need a church health team to do that. I'm preaching, so I got boring sermons. What am I going to do? I got to fix that right now. What am I going to do differently this week? And so if I can figure that out, I don't need a church health team to give me 5 goals for that. And I think as a staff or as a pastor, I'm going to study this thing and figure a few of these things out on my own. And then the church health team is going to do their thing. And then we're going to launch that with the church. My friend that I mentioned in California, he brings his church health team up in front of the church and they pray over them before they start their study. I think that's a great thing. And so he's been doing it a while and God's really blessed his church. And he says it's all natural church development. God has used that as a tool to turn them around because they were literally voting to close the doors of his church. And it's an amazing thing. So that's the whole process of natural church development. I think it's a great tool. And I've seen it work all over the world, all kinds of churches, all kinds of denominations. Seventh-day Adventists, Baptists, Methodists. I've worked with different ones. And it's just been amazing to see how God has used it to make a difference for his kingdom. And so I encourage you to think about it. I'm happy to help you any way that I can. And I love this and I'm passionate about it because I believe that Jesus wants his church to be healthy. And so I just challenge you to think about that in relationship to your own church. What are you doing? Maybe your church is crazy healthy. It won't stay that way. Just because your body's in great shape now. Listen, I was 20 pounds lighter this time last year. What has happened? It's like maybe 15 pounds. But it don't just stay. You got to keep working on it. And so we got to work on this. And if you don't use natural church development, there's other resources out there. But I would say use something because there's nothing more important than being a healthy church for Jesus. All right?
Question.
Yep.
Just a point of clarification. When should this get into the hands of the people that, is it in August or should we start this summer?
Yeah, this is a church-wide thing. And so normally what churches do, like let's say a month before you launch it, you start talking about it. I don't know, you could start talking about it sooner, but you could say in August, we're going to do this church-wide thing. We're going to focus on personal spiritual health and starting, we're going to do a thing, 30 days to spiritual health, and we're going to start it on August the 8th or whatever. You pick a date. And then maybe a few weeks before that, you have the books available and people can buy them and pick them up at the church. And then let's say that August 8th is going to be day 1. And let's say that's a Monday. I can't remember what the days are in August, but let's say Monday is August 8th. And so maybe on August the 7th, you have this big dinner, big thing. We're going to do a big launch on a Sunday night. Everybody comes together and we're going to talk about being healthy Christians. And if you want me to come speak or you want somebody to come speak, go ahead and line them up, figure that out, whoever it is, and then launch that thing. And then on Monday morning, then they start with day 1 in there. So the way we do it, we calendar stuff. And so we say we have this event starting this day and then we back it up. And we usually have a 30-day unpacking for the church. We find that if you unpack too soon, everybody forgets about it. So what other questions do you have about this process? Yes, sir.
Well, my wife tells me every day I don't listen. So
That's probably not true, Tommy. I can't imagine it.
If we go through this process, and now we have a statistic that tells us we've got these issues, where do we go from there? Is this program, this book going to tell us how to address those?
Yeah.
Or we've got to go somewhere else to get that kind of help?
All right. Once you go through it, you get the profile and it says this is your minimum factor. it doesn't tell you why it's your minimum factor. Now, those 10 questions related to it will give you a good clue. I mean, you could look at that, like if that minimum question that says the pastor wants to do all the work by himself, or however that question was worded, that's kind of an indicator. So some of those questions, I think, will give you food for thought as you try to analyze this. But your church health team will come together, and I'll work with your church health team on that first meeting. I'll train them on how to dig into this. You got to figure out, why is that your minimum factor? What's the problem? And so that takes asking yourself some tough questions. You might have to dig into some things a little bit. You might want to do some creative research in your church to figure out what's the problem here. Ask people their opinion, whatever. And so you're trying to figure out, why is it your minimum factor? Once you know that, that's when you say, okay, so what are we going to do? Like for us at our church, Effective Structures, we don't have a good training process. I mean, it's terrible. And I'm like, what? We should have figured this out like a long time ago, but it's not very good. And so it actually didn't take rocket science for us to figure that out. So we said, all right, so what are we going to do? We're going to develop a better process to train our leaders. We have job descriptions that include what they do, the kind of gifts they should have, and here's the onboarding process that you go through. And we've decided, instead of having a big training meeting, because everybody hates meetings, we're going to put it on video. Watch these videos, answer these questions, and then here's a book, here's a mentoring program we're going to do. And so we created that ourselves. Now, if you want me to coach your church, I'll help you through the process. But as a coach, I'm not really going to tell you how to do it. I'm going to try to help you figure it out. I'm going to try to help your people figure it out, because it's better. It's just better. Self-discovery is far better than some consultant coming in saying, here's 5 things you need to do. But you let your people uncover it, then I think it's going to be a better strategy in the end, because they own it. That's why God took Adam out in the garden and said, let's name the animals. Have you ever thought that's weird? God says to Adam, it's not good that you're alone. I'll make a helper suitable for you. Let's go name the animals. That's just weird. But he did that, I think, because he wanted Adam to go through the process of self-discovery. There are no animals out here that meet my needs. I need a woman. He wanted Adam to figure that out. And so I think there's a solid biblical basis for that. So that's just smart. And for us as pastors, honestly, we don't always need to be the answer man. We got the 5 things we need to do, church. Let's go do these 5 things. I don't think that's the best way to do it. As a pastor, we ought to help our church figure it out. We ought to lead them through the process of self-discovery. Yes, sir.
Do you run into the situation where you work with a team and they identify the things they need to work on, but then there's a lack of volunteerism because they're already involved in so many other things?
Yeah, I've had several situations where the church would go through their profile and then they do nothing else with it. Guys, I don't understand that. I had one situation where it made the pastor look bad, so he didn't want to go forward with it. I'm like, we just need to grow up here. I mean, we got to fix ourselves. I've had the process where they started the journey but never finished it. There's a lot of reasons why people don't do it. With your church health team, it might be worth relieving some of them of some responsibilities if it takes that. I've never had to do that. I mean, typically people run with it. But I do think it requires us as the pastor or whoever is going to lead the church health team. You don't always have to lead it. It could be somebody else in your church to lead it. And that might be a little indicator. If you're too busy and you know it just won't work for you to be a leader. If you lead it, you're going to be the cog in the wheel of progress. Get somebody else to do it. Get another staff member. Get a high capacity leader in your church to be in charge and let them run with it. There's nothing wrong with that. You can be a part of it, but you don't have to be involved in every step of the way. But I do think somebody has to be, I don't want to say cracking the whip, but somebody's got to be on top of this thing. You got to make it happen, right? Because it's not going to just happen. We don't just accidentally fall into spiritual health. It just don't happen. It happens because of intentional effort. I walked 4 miles last night, guys. I'm pretty proud of that. I used to walk 4 miles a night, 5 nights a week, and something's happened. Yeah, in the pollen. And I was exhausted. We had a crazy full day yesterday. We had a big event. Actually, Jimmy came and spoke at it, our evangelism training event. We had a big funeral yesterday, service yesterday. So it was a busy time. But I'm like, I have got to walk my 4 miles. So I have to take the initiative or I'm not going to lose 15 pounds and I'm not going to be ready to climb Katahdin in July. And so I think we have to do the same thing with our spiritual health. You got to take the initiative. It won't happen by accident. You got to do it on purpose. We don't just suddenly fall into spiritual health. It happens because we did something on purpose to change the trajectory of our lives. And so I think we have to help our church with that. But I don't know, you might have some better insight on that because there's a lot of reasons why it could fail. But I think if we work the system, we know the system works. We've seen it work all over the world. And so I know it's a good process. What other questions do you have? Yeah, Dave?
In terms of the church health team, so the demographics of it, men, women, different ministry leaders involved, what do you have a suggestion?
I say across the board, have some men, have some women. A lot of churches want to put young people on it. I'm not opposed to that necessarily, but you do have to have some people who have some wisdom. They need to be able to ask some tough questions and dig into stuff. I'm not sure if a teenager has the capacity to do that. I have some people say, we want to include teenagers on the profile team, the 30, to answer the questions. My question is, does a teenager know the church well enough to answer the questions? If you want a teenager to be a part of the experience, I would say let them be number 31 or 32 or 35. Get 30 key leaders who know the church well, and then add a few others. You can add as many as you want. It doesn't matter. But 30 we need at least 30.
Does the 4 or 5 that David was talking about come from the 30?
They could.
They don't have to.
They don't have to. For that, you want to think about people who can process things well, people who can dig in, they can ask tough questions. You might want to think about who could be a prayer leader kind of person on the team, who could be a research leader on the team. Just kind of think about who in your church has the capacity to do this, to really dig in, ask some hard questions, someone who knows how to research this thing a little bit. Maybe some people who are readers, they have some understanding of some of this kind of stuff. The first time we did this, it was unbelievable what all we did. We read books, we attended seminars. It was really long drawn out. It was more drawn out than it had to be. But we did some serious research. We had a serious problem. We had to turn this thing around. And I wanted to involve as many people in the church as possible. So we created study teams and all kind of stuff. But we were in serious trouble. And so I did something to involve as many as possible. We probably had 100 people involved in the study process back then. And back then we were only running 200. Half of them were part of the study team. They helped us pull it off. But I did that on purpose because we were in trouble and I needed the whole church involved so they felt like this is something we're doing together. And I think it worked. What other questions do you have?
We got a couple that's been coming for the past couple of years. They just joined the church yesterday. I respect his wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
But would he be disqualified because they just joined the church?
Not necessarily. If you think about it depends on which aspect of it. For the people answering the questions, would he know the church well enough? Of course, he's been there for 2 years. He might. David's been how long have you been there? 2 years, 3 years?
Almost 2.
2. And so would David know our church well enough? Of course, he's not a member yet, but would he know our church well enough? I don't know. I don't know if you know us well enough or not to be part of the 30. I would think probably not, because there's some hard questions on there that you.
Like if he's already operating in leadership or doing other stuff, he might be.
He might have been fast tracked, And it also depends maybe on the size of your church, the complexity of things, maybe. But that's really the question on the 30. Do they know the church well enough to answer these questions? Now, would he be good on the health team? Maybe.
Yeah.
He might be. And so, because really what you're looking for on the health team is not really knowledge of the church, but skills. Skills to be able to ask hard questions, to figure out strategy, to really seek the Lord about this thing. So that would be a little different. All right, I think maybe I'm out of time. I don't really know. I'm not real good on watching the clock. You can ask my people about that.
One other question.
Okay.
Should we stay away from couples? Pick a man, pick a woman, but not couples?
I've always said, stay away from that. My last time I did this, maybe it was last time, I can't remember, but I said, you really probably shouldn't pick husband and wife because typically the husband and wife are going to agree on stuff. And then somebody said, not us, we don't agree on anything. So, I don't know. I don't really know the right answer to that. It kind of depends maybe on the size of your church. In my church, I mean, I can easily come up with 30 people and they don't have to be married. It's not as complicated. If I were in my first church, I would have husbands and wives in some cases. So it just kind of depends, I think.